Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome back to From the Press Box here on the Right Team Podcast. My name is David Weaver, and as always, I am the host of the podcast, and I'm here with my co-host of this show, Brother Matt Paul, live from Marshall, Texas, as we sit here and talk today. And coming off a big weekend, Matt, man, a lot of news going on, both in the sport world, of course, around the world, and a lot of stuff going on, obviously, that we're going to navigate through here this morning. But how was your weekend?
Good weekend, busy weekend. Did a lot of premarital counseling over the weekend, doing 2 weddings at the end of March. Celebrated my wife's got a birthday coming up Friday, but that's the start of spring break. So we actually had a birthday celebration, a party for her with some out of town friends over the weekend on Saturday. So that kept us pretty busy. And got to, be on the mic for a basketball game Friday night and watched a lot of college basketball.
We'll talk about that some more here, but how'd that go Friday night? I know you were looking forward to that.
It was a good game. A lot of really high level athletes on the court. I don't know if you've heard the phrase that's being used in college basketball analytics now called a kill shot, which is basically a 10-0 run. Chapel Hill and Pleasant Grove, it was 37-36 Chapel Hill. About 5 or 6 minutes to go in the third quarter. So, we're getting into it, and it's a really good ball game. And Chapel Hill goes on a 12-0 run in about 60 seconds. I mean, just bang. And I turned to the Marshall head basketball coach who's there because, you got to have administrators on duty at the neutral site. And I looked at him and I was like, that's a kill shot. And he goes, exactly. And Chapel Hill from that point on, the lead fluctuated between like 9 and 15, but it was done. That was it.
Yeah, you and I were kind of texting back and forth Friday night. Of course, I did get to attend the Allegiant Fields and Hawkins game over here in Hallsville, my neck of the woods. And kind of funny thing. So, I pride myself on timeliness and things like that, and you have to, right? In the professional world. And so I was ready to go, and everything was planned out for me being there at tip-off at 6:30. And I roll into Bobcat Coliseum about 6:20. The parking lot's full. I'm like, man, this thing is going to be, a madhouse inside. And I get in, of course, and it is full. But they are, they got 6 minutes left in the second quarter. And I was like, what in the world happened? And then as luck would have it, I went and looked back on everything I had posted all week, everything that was on my ticket stub. And of course, the game did tip off at 6. I just, as the, you don't know something until you don't know it. And I was just in my head, it was tipping off at 6:30. And so I ended up about 20 minutes late. They're already halfway through the second quarter. So I sat down, and by the time I sat down, EF was on the wrong end of about 16, 17 points down. And they kept trying to make little runs. Nunu Kennedy, we know how good he was in football. He could probably play college basketball, in my opinion, at a Division III school for sure, which is where he's going, obviously, to play football.
Right.
But he's got some basketball hops to him as well. Got a really good shot. He can break defenses down and get to the hoop. Just a really solid basketball player. And he was trying to keep him in the ball game. EF would make a little run really prior to halftime and get it to 11, 12 or so. And then every time Hawkins would have an answer, really good shooting team, knew how to get to the basket. And they had an answer for every one of ES runs. And in the second half, they just kind of overcame them and pulled away there late. And I left with about 3 minutes to go, I think. Very entertaining game there. And again, one of the best basketball facilities, certainly in high school in our area. And it was an enjoyable night. But the Jacket season did end. And we'll get into that more here in just a second. And then on Saturday, of course, I was going out for my walk that I like to take on a daily basis when I can here in my neighborhood. And I took about 3 steps into my yard and realized, nope, I'm going to get my steps by mowing my yard. And so I did my first mow of the spring, which was probably not a good idea because it's, we got the worst allergies that we're ever going to see right now. And
Yes.
so I was pretty well stirred up Saturday night and into Sunday. Felt a little bit better yesterday, but yeah, I did get the yard mowed, and probably it's already looking out my window here. It's going to have another one this week, so that's already started now, probably through August. So anyway, that's how I spent my weekend. And again, in and out of watching college basketball and then other things going on around the world. The weekend went pretty fast, to be honest.
Yeah. My yard needs mowed too, but out of principle, just can't. Mowing in February, I'm just really angry at Mother Nature right now, and so I'm just.
But technically, it's March now. It's not February, so.
Well, but this weekend it was February.
Well,
still,
yeah, technically, yes, it was February the 28th. So you're right. You would have been mowing in February, which I get it, but I had looked at it for 2 weeks and I couldn't look at it anymore. So
it's rough. Yeah.
Okay, let's get into today's show here with our high school section, what we call Beast Texas. But before we get into that, this portion of the program is brought to you by Stiles Electric, which is based right here in East Texas with offices in Longview and Mount Pleasant. Stiles Electric has been providing dependable, professional electrical work for over a quarter century in East Texas and beyond. When experience matters, Stiles Electric delivers service that speaks for itself. We have updated our Right Team Podcast Facebook page with the scores from this past week of the area round for the boys, and then of course the regional final for the girls has been updated, and I've got, I think as of now, I've got everyone's location and time for the upcoming games this week. Let's start on the boys' side here, and don't necessarily want to go run down all of the scores if we can avoid it, but there were some. You and I talked about a couple of really good ball games to watch over the weekend that have set up some pretty decent regional semifinal matchups here. One thing I did want to get your comment on, Matt. Of course, you and I had talked about going into the playoffs, this 10-5A thing with District 9-5A and how tough it is to get over that hurdle. Lufkin was the only one out of the 8 teams from the district that made the playoffs to actually advance to the area round, and then Lufkin met their match this past round in area. And so the Panthers are out. So every school in District 10-5A now, basketball team, their seasons are over.
Yeah, and Lufkin, that was a really good game with Frisco. I believe it was Frisco Reedy, a 3-point ball game. Coach Boyd at Marshall was watching that game as the Tyler Chapel Hill Pleasant Grove game was going on, and so I got to watch the end of that game with him. Here's the thing about it that kind of stood out to me, and I talked with the Marshall coaches, both Coach Boyd and our girls coach, Coach Wade, about this, because I really found it quite interesting. So, we talked about the Marshall Anna game, right? And how, I mean, it just was one of these things is not like the other, right? I thought Marshall fought hard. They played well. Anna wins that game by 32. It might not have been that close. Did you happen to see Anna's second round matchup?
I did not follow them, no, sir.
They played Frisco Memorial and lost by 13. So, like, we were not in the same world as Anna, who then got handled fairly easily by a Frisco team. So what that tells me, and it's kind of just, it's just one of these things. It is what it is, and there's not really that much you can do about it, I don't think. But at the end of the day, there's just such a fundamental difference. And I was talking with the Marshall girls coach, and I said, next year, Lufkin comes out of your district. You improved by 3 wins this year. If you improve by 3 wins next year and get 6-6, that you might make playoffs at that. And I said, and that's the extent of what you can do. And he goes, that's what we can do. And I was like, that's it. And I said, and look at the Marshall boys. Lufkin rotates out of their district, and the Marshall boys, the teams that are actually in the district with Marshall next year, Marshall went 9-3 against this year. You could make the case Marshall could, with what they have coming back, potentially have a shot at a district championship, and that's the extent of what they can do. I'm not trying to sad sack it or feel bad. I'm just saying it is what it is, and probably the sooner you realize that, the better off you are.
Well, in the school world, we always like to talk about data and what does the data show? You are what your record shows, and it's not a it's not a put down on any of our local schools.
No.
You know, kids do a good job, coaches do a good job, but there is a level of excellence when you get to that level in the playoffs that you don't necessarily see in football a whole lot. You'll see a lot more success on the football field. But volleyball will experience this a lot. Hallsville's had some really good teams roll through a season and run into that brick wall in by district, certainly an area, and just can't get over that hump. And you're gonna baseball. It kind of has a little bit more opportunity for our teams to go deep. Softball as well, but man, when you get particularly basketball, yes, and we've seen it. I mean, and again, the data shows that our local teams struggle in the playoffs at the upper levels. And I don't know how you fix that because, I mean, you've seen it. I mean, you've got good teams and you got good players and you got good coaches. It's just different.
And there's an overwhelming talent disparity. There just is. There's you may say, well, why can't the coaches or look, I'm sorry. I don't care if Coach Boyd was Coach K. I looked at the matchup with our guys against Anna. It was what it was. And Anna couldn't really hang with Frisco Memorial. So you see how it goes.
And it's funny how it all comes down to the players. I mean, you can have the greatest coach in the world and
yep.
You're going to have your players, all five of your players are going to go face all five of their players. And that's how it comes down to. There were some matchups coming up here. Again, there's a couple of UIL boys games this evening in the regional semifinal round on the boys side. And again, the schedule is up on the Facebook page, but there's a handful here that I kind of wanted to just kind of highlight really quickly. You've seen Chapel Hill, obviously, on Friday night. But they get a quick turnaround here in a game in which they're going to play Kennedale. The record of these two teams, again, Chapel Hill 32-2 and Kennedale's 30-5. So two 30-win teams at this point in the season will be meeting up on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock at Forney High School. Big matchup there between some talented teams, which you would expect at this level. I mean, the deeper you go, you're going to see, some pretty heavy matchups going on. The other team here that I think, from our area that bears watching is, of course, Jefferson, which got their 30th win of the season. In a somewhat easy area win last week over Grand Saline. The Bulldogs that come in at 30-3 will be taking on Dallas Madison, which is 22-12. That game will tip off at 8 o'clock on Tuesday night at Tyler High School. And then the other one here that I wanted to point out, and again, I tried to keep it to a top three. It was a tough call, but Sherano at 27-5 is taking on La Pointer at 28-5. So again, two very evenly matched teams in terms of records there in the 2A ranks. That game tips off at 7 o'clock Tuesday at Slocum High School. So a lot of good action going on the boys' side in particular. But man, there's also, and we talked about it, Jefferson and Liberty Ilo, particularly on the boys' side, are kind of on a crash course. If they can both win their regional semis here the first part of the week, we'll probably come head to head at the later part of the week.
Well, I don't know if you've seen this. When I saw that Jefferson was playing Dallas Madison, I thought, I feel like I've seen them in some of the ranking. They're number 1 in 3A. The record, obviously, I think it's 22-12, just tells me they've been playing a lot of those bigger Dallas area schools probably to get ready for whatever. So that's going to be a challenge for Jefferson playing a Dallas area school. You don't see a lot of those Dallas area schools in the 3A, so we'll see how that goes, if it can be Jefferson, Liberty Ilo. Chapel Hill, Kennedale, very interesting to me. Kennedale, not only 30-5, they're the defending state champs at that level. So big time matchup. I tell you what, Chapel Hill and Liberty Ilo, and I'm pretty sure Jefferson's the same way. It's just so fast. It is so fast. But I'll tell you what's hilarious. And I may have told you this on the podcast last week. Can't remember. But I'm at the Liberty Ilo, their first game against Dangerfield, which wasn't a game at all as far as being competitive. And Liberty Ilo, I mean, it is just, they're like a blur up and down the court. And the referees come up at halftime to the table, and I said, y'all getting your workout tonight, huh? And one of them looked at me and smiled and said, we officiate over in DFW. We're good.
Yeah.
That's just how he left it. So,
Yeah. Again, different style of basketball, different style of player. When you do that, and the officials know that as well. They run up and down. I was watching the other night in that 2A game I was at, and I was tired before halftime. I mean, I got there late, right? And so I'm watching these guys do full sprints up and down the court because these kids were playing pretty fast as well. You could tell EF was trying to get up and down the floor.
Yes.
And but yeah, those officials get a pretty good workout running on the courts for sure. So that's the boys' action. Again, you can find all the games that are happening here over the next couple of days on our Right Team Podcast Facebook page. Again, that is updated. On the girls' side, of course, they were playing their regional finals on Friday night. And I've kind of adopted, we haven't really been talking about them much this year until the playoffs, but I've kind of adopted Martin's Mill. They are technically close enough in our area to where I think you and I can safely say we're just going to adopt them and start covering them because they're pretty good at basketball. They defeated Sereno in the regional final on Friday, 60-36. And so the Mill advances to face Goldthwaite, which is 24-12. That game is scheduled for 6:30 tomorrow evening at China Spring High School. Again, that's a state semifinal. The winner of that game will go down to the state tournament and play in the state championship game, which I believe is at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, if I remember correctly. I don't have it written down here, but I believe that's right. It's not in Austin. And then the other one, of course, and we talked about this, really been talking about it since Bi-District, about how really good and solid of a team the San Augustine girls are. Of course, they faced Elysian Fields in the Bi-District round and knocked out the Lady Jackets. Well, they are now playing in a state semifinal after they knocked off Marlin 45-33 in the region final. And so they will be taking on a really tough challenge in the semis, Mason, which comes into the game 39-1. Matt, only one loss on the season. That game takes place actually tonight on the schedule at 6:30 at Mumford High School. So again, those are your two area
39-1. Wow.
39-1. Only one hiccup. And I should have looked and seen exactly who it was that beat them. But they may not have their one loss may not even be playing anymore. At this stage in the season. So a tough challenge there for the Lady Wolves, but they are playing for the right to play for a state championship.
Pretty impressive.
Week. So that's your girls roundup here on Beach, Texas. Again, want to thank Styles Electric for sponsoring this portion of the show. Let's move on to our March Madness section, which we talk about, of course, all things college at this time of year. And, of course, this segment is brought to you by East Texas Baptist University, which combines strong academics with championship-level athletics and a Christ-centered mission that impacts every part of campus life. If you're looking for a university that values faith, competition, and community, ETBU is the place for you. Learn more about life on the Hill in Marshall, Texas at www.etbu.edu. And of course, it's Monday, which means it is a Back Row Bracketology Day. And Matt and I were talking about the show last evening, and we are going to unveil his actual bracket, which Matt actually has on the document that we have, but we will unveil that next week. His predictions on who's going where, who's playing who, of course, the seeding in all of the regions, and we will unveil that and talk about it next week. And which is actually just 6 days prior to the NCAA selection show. Just a couple of weeks away from March Madness. Truly happy here, Matt. Can you start to feel the tingle just a little bit as we get close?
Yeah, I'd tell you what, this weekend, trying to figure out the bracket this weekend, it is murky and muddy, especially down there at the bottom. But watching the moves some of these teams are making, and there were just very little, like I was like, okay, Duke, Michigan, Arizona, and UConn, there's my top four. And then after that, I got to crunch some numbers. But that's because it's become so unpredictable, which is what you want. It's what makes it fun.
And the fun part about what we're going to do next week, when we unveil your bracket, is just to see how close you are.
Right.
And if you are tantalizingly close to the final bracket, then you and I are going to hit the road together and do our own show.
Yes.
Much
because I tell you, there's been years I've done this in the past where I was pretty confident. This is like you took that test in college and you're like, I knew what the subject was, but there's a lot of questions. I was like, it could have been B or C, and I just had to make a guess. So yeah we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and just talk about it again. We will be showing the actual S curve part of Matt's bracketology here, and that's where how he explains his methodology and how, again, don't look at these numbers as you're seeing them on your screen. Don't look at these numbers and say, oh, this is the regional matchups necessarily, because this is the S curve part of this, where he actually builds his bracket on the back page, which we will talk about next week.
So we'll start at the top, and like I said, those top four basically remain unchanged. You kind of know who they are: Duke, Michigan, Arizona, UConn. The battle for the overall number one seems to be between Duke and Michigan. Duke gets the nod because they won the head-to-head. The real mover and shaker in this is Florida. Florida played a really good Arkansas team and just acted like they were a JV squad. They are very, very good. They are back to the level that they were last year, and they're peaking just like they did last year. Frankly, it's kind of scary to wonder, I still think Michigan and Duke seem to be like the teams to beat, but like Florida right now is just frightening. Iowa State took a little bit of a bump this week, and we're going to talk about that in the 3 seeds. In fact, a lot of movement with the 3 seeds because, first of all, what a weekend for Michigan State. They played Thursday night at Purdue and got the win, and then had to go play a desperate Indiana team and beat them on the road as well. Michigan State moves to my top number 3, and they are sniffing right there with Illinois to maybe move up to a 2. Another big mover. How about the job Grant McCasland and Texas Tech are doing? They go into Iowa State and give Iowa State their first loss at home. Excuse me. They led that game the whole way. At one point, Iowa State cut it to 6, and they went on an 8-0 run to put that game away. Texas Tech creeps back into the 3 line for me. Nebraska holds steady in the 3. Gonzaga, a loss at St. Mary's isn't a bad loss, bumped them down a little bit. Purdue fell all the way to a 4 to me because not only did they have the loss to Michigan State at home, then they go at Ohio State, and really Ohio State, a team that took care of business. We're going to talk about them in a minute. But really controlled Purdue the whole way. Still very fluid here. Purdue, Texas Tech, Gonzaga, Nebraska. I think Kansas, all those could maybe end up as 3 seeds. Very fluid right there. So we'll see. The 4s are the same 4s, just a little bit different order. Kansas, Alabama, Virginia. Really big win for Alabama on Saturday at Tennessee. So that was really, really critical for them. The 5s stay as they are, just in a little bit different order. St. John's got a good win at Villanova. Arkansas took it on the chin at Florida, which actually I don't even know that hurts them that much because you played at Florida, and Florida's just rocket hot right now. Vanderbilt lost at Georgia this weekend. Tennessee, I mentioned their loss. The 6 seeds, North Carolina got a good win this weekend against a bubble team, Virginia Tech. Louisville fell to Clemson. BYU fell to West Virginia, who stays alive. Kentucky got a good win. Actually, I said Vanderbilt lost to Georgia. Vanderbilt lost to Kentucky. Kentucky dominated Vanderbilt at home after being dominated by Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt. So Kentucky moves up a little bit there. As you get into the 7s, Villanova just swapped with Kentucky. They fell to a 7. St. Mary's, a mover and shaker. I believe I had them on that 8-9 line. That win over Gonzaga really bumped them up into the range of the 7s. As you get to the 8s, Clemson had a good win. They're sniffing maybe a 7 seed. Iowa falls to a 7 after a rough loss to Penn State. Not a loss you want to be having, but I think Iowa's still fine at this point. At this point, David, if you're on that 8-9 line, especially if you're on that 8 line, we're so late in the season, you're safe. Maybe
Yeah.
even on the 9 line, you're safe.
Yeah.
So St. Louis got a win, looks good. Georgia looks like they're safe. The back end of the 9 line, UCLA had a tough loss to Minnesota. Now we're starting to get into the teams that are very close. Maybe not 100% safe, but very close. And right there, you see the best 10 seed is your Texas Longhorns. You got a huge win at A&M. I think Texas, the only way Texas doesn't make it is if they lose their last 2 games to Arkansas and Oklahoma and then bow out quickly in the SEC tournament. Even then, they might be in, but then they're sweating, right? They're sweating at that point. Central Florida took a tough loss at home to Baylor. I think if Central Florida had won that game, they locked themselves in. Instead, they're still waiting. TCU and Missouri are teams that are getting hot right now. They've got a couple wins under their belt, so they're looking good. Miami of Ohio, hey, give them
All
credit.
they do is win. All they do is
keep
win.
finding ways to win. They're 29-0. I tell you, their metrics and their analytics are horrible, but they're 29-0. If you're wondering why are they not higher, it's. I would put them higher if I was making the bracket, but I want to be clear. This is not what I think it should be. This is what I'm guessing it will be. And so I feel like Miami of Ohio is still on that 10-11 cusp. A&M's knocking on the door right now, and not the good door. They are my last buy, and it was a coin flip. Let me tell you right now, my last buy, my last 4 in, and my first 2 or 3 out, I don't know. It's a coin flip. I wouldn't be surprised by anything. A&M's my last buy. My last 4 in, Ohio State new to the poll after a huge win. New Mexico got a solid win this week. I could have considered putting New Mexico ahead of A&M. Santa Clara and Indiana. And Indiana, I want to be very clear, David. I'm not confident in Indiana at all. They just found their way onto that last spot. My first 4 out, if you look over there, San Diego State, Auburn, VCU. I could put any of those instead of Indiana. Auburn is weird. They're weird. They had a bad loss. I dropped them a lot because they lost at home to Ole Miss, who is hoping to maybe make the NIT. That was not a good loss for them. Their record is barely above 500, so they may not even qualify. They're only 6-10 in the SEC. You say, why are they on there? Because almost 60% of their games have been against quad 1 competition. They've played the toughest schedule in the country. So I had to keep them on there, but they're on life support right now. And then a couple of Big 12 teams clinging to life and got wins this weekend. Cincinnati got a win. West Virginia, big win over BYU. That keeps them in the mix. And then you also see down there in I haven't spent a lot of time talking about this, but you see a lot of teams in the 12 through 17 line in bold and all caps. They are currently leading their conferences. So I gave them the bid. That's no guarantee. Most of them still have to win their conference tournament. Maybe all of them still have to win their conference tournament. But I got to pick somebody from that conference. I'm going to pick the team that's leading it right now.
That's easy to do.
So that's kind of how that looks right there. But I'm going to tell you what is really interesting to me, and just a couple items of note, is because the bubble is so soft, I want to look at 2 teams down there that you see on the 12 line. South Florida out of the American and Belmont out of the Missouri Valley. Now, Belmont just had a tough loss on the road to Illinois State. It was pretty good. So Belmont may not be in this conversation anymore, but the bubble's getting so soft that if South Florida, their metrics are pretty good. If they win their last regular season games and run all the way to the conference championship game and bow out, would you rather see South Florida or some 18-14 team from the Big Ten? I'd rather see South Florida, and the metrics may prove that. Belmont is sitting here at, like, I don't know, they're like 20, 26-5 or something, 25-4. They're two teams that I'm like, maybe these teams could get in as an at-large if they run all the way to their conference championship game. It might be more palatable to take one of them rather than one of these barely hanging on teams that we've just got to throw in there. That's what Indiana was for me. But that's kind of where we are on it right now.
Good stuff, partner. As I'm looking at it here, I want to ask you a question just off the top of your head. I mean, obviously, I think you're right on with the top four. I don't think there's any doubt there. Duke, Michigan, Arizona, UConn are the leaders in the clubhouse. I mean, I could make the case probably by the end of tournament season, if things go the way you might expect them to, Florida might end up being a 1 seed. I could see that jumping UConn there, but the other three I think are pretty solid and safe unless something crazy happens. Who in that middle group, and when I say middle group, I'm saying 5 to 9 seeds, do you think has a legitimate shot to break free and maybe make a deep run to the Final Four? Which one of those teams in that kind of bracket area do you see as potential danger for some of those top seeds in the Elite Eight, Sweet 16, whenever they meet up?
Yeah, in the 5 through 9, who immediately is going to step out to me, because basketball is we just talked about with high school, it's so much about players. BYU has borderline the number 1 pick with AJ DeBansa, and Arkansas has a bona fide top 10, maybe top 7 or 8 in Darius Acuff. When you've got guys like that, you can win games. You can be in games. And, Arkansas is a team that has wins over teams up there like Texas Tech, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. BYU's got a win over Iowa State up there, so they've proven they can beat some of the big dogs. So those are the two that would really jump off the chart to me. Also, another thing with Arkansas and some other teams, when you've got a coach that knows what it takes, that helps. Arkansas with Calipari. Look at St. John's, a 5 seed. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of their coach, Rick Pitino. He's pretty good. He's got a lot of experience there. I look at, as you get a little further down that list, I don't know. It's tough. I see some teams that I think could maybe win a game or two. I don't know. I look at a team like Wisconsin in the 7s who has slayed a couple giants this year. They've beaten they're one of the 2 teams that have beaten Michigan, and they did it at Michigan. And they also have a win over, I think it's Illinois. So they can do it. I look at them as a 7 seed. I look at Iowa as an 8 seed just because they've got a dude, Bennett Sturts, that can kind of light it up. So you never know when you've got a dude, how that can work. Those are the ones that really sort of stand out to me. You also have in that 5 through 9, you have some blue blood programs: Kentucky, Louisville, North Carolina, Villanova, UCLA. These are like historically great college basketball teams that you're like, oh, they're probably like a 3 or 4. No, they're in that like 6 through 9 line. So it could be really interesting. But if you're going to ask me like who hops off the charts, I always look at players. Do you have a dude? Look, every NCAA tournament, there's some team that makes a run to the Elite Eight that you're like, that guy just got hot and went off. And AJ DeBansa and Darius Acuff could do that. And so those would be the 2 that would jump off the page to me.
And those are actually the 2 teams I see when I look at it that jump off to me as well. And it makes me feel like I'm learning something when you agree with that. So or you and I have been doing it together now. I can almost read your mind or your bracket for sure.
Sure.
Very quickly here, let's switch over to the women's side of the NCAA bracket here, and not a whole lot of upsets to talk about, particularly in the action on Sunday. I think pretty much it's status quo in terms of their bracketology, and again, we will talk about ESPN's bracketology on the women's side tomorrow and kind of update that. But I think everything is pretty much going to stay the same, at least for sure in the top four, with South Carolina and Texas from the SEC coming in at 3 and 4 in the last bracket. Both of those put off road wins on Sunday. A little bit tougher challenge for South Carolina than probably they were expecting, although they were on the road at number 16 Kentucky. I mean, they pull away to a 60-56 win, but Kentucky almost flipped them there, particularly in the fourth quarter when they went on a 15-6 run there in the quarter, made it closer. But South Carolina does get out of there with a win. Of course, Texas goes on the road to Alabama and comes away with a 72-65 win. So the Horns improved to 28-3 and remain a solid number 4 in the rankings. Some mild upsets just to kind of mention here that I don't know that it's going to make a whole lot of difference in terms of the way the NCAA tournament plays out. But you got in the ACC, Notre Dame going on the road and knocking off number 10 Louisville 65-62. The Irish came into that one with a 12-6 mark in the ACC. I'm guessing probably they are a tournament team. And so that I don't think that's really that big of an upset, but it is noteworthy. Beat a top 10 team on the road for sure.
Yep.
And again, a couple of other what I would call mild upsets, just because they're both ranked teams. TCU holds home serve against Baylor, knocks off the Bears 65-53. And then, of course, the Battle of Tobacco Road on the women's side. Duke goes on the road to North Carolina, and the Tar Heels come away with a 74-69 victory over number 12 Duke. North Carolina was ranked 21st. Again, rivalry matchup there. I don't think it's going to hurt anyone too much. Ohio State goes on the road to Michigan State. That's a 13 versus a 15. Comes away with a big 19-point win, 87-68. So, and then the other one here that I wanted to mention now, this, again, I would call it a mild upset just because you've got an unranked team beating a ranked team. They're ranked 19th, Ole Miss. Texas A&M comes in there and knocks off the Rebels 66-58 yesterday. I don't know, you're at number 19 already. That improves the Aggies to 7-9. I don't know what that means for theirs, but that is a little bit of an upset, particularly here late in the season. Never know how that's going to go, but that's kind of a rundown of your ladies. And again, we'll give them kind of see where their bracket comes out from ESPN when it is updated tomorrow.
Well, and I will say, actually, they've started updating it because I checked. They did update it late last night. I checked it this morning. That was the one game I wanted to talk about. One, because it's fairly local with the Aggies, but that was a big road win for them. They have reappeared on bracketology. They are now one of the next 4 out, which you're getting so late right now. If you're next 4 out, you've really got to make a lot of moves. But here's the thing: the SEC is ready for their tournament in the women's. They're going to be playing in the first round against Auburn. That is a must-win. There's no question about it. They're going to get if they win that, I believe they get a rematch with Ole Miss. If they beat Auburn and then beat Ole Miss again, all of a sudden you might see them move into the first 4 out line, and then their third game in the conference tournament could be critical. Because look, once you get into the quarterfinals, the third day of that conference tournament, we've talked about the SEC women's basketball. Everybody's good. Everybody's going to be really good. So A&M, that was the biggest needle mover for me because they reappeared on bracketology. Still a lot of work to do, but they're still alive.
Okay, that's our March Madness portion of today's show. Again, thank you to ETBU for sponsoring that segment of our show. Good stuff, as always, on Monday with Back Row Bracketology. Again, we will have an update coming up on Thursday. And, of course, it begins championship week this week. There are some conferences with their conference tournaments starting later this week, I believe. And so we will actually have some NCAA teams who have qualified and received automatic bids by this time next week, which is right about the time we're going to be unveiling your bracket, Matt. So
that's right.
Again, that'll be happening later this week. We'll be anxious to see how that goes. We now come to the back page portion of our show, which is sponsored by Right Team Services. Right Team Services helps schools, small businesses, and nonprofits turn ideas into impact through effective writing, clear messaging, and meaningful connection across your websites and social media platforms. When you need results but don't quite have the words to say, let Right Team Services provide the voice that you need. Contact me today at 903-926-1766, or you can visit our website at www.rightteamservices.net to learn more about how we can help you tell your story. The back page today, Matt, man, I got a lot of stuff here. Of course, it's been a weekend, and so I've been sitting on some of this. But let's start with you and maybe some things you have noticed from the sports world over the weekend.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I got three things, but one is I don't know if you're familiar with Chad Baker-Mazara. He was a key component of Auburn's Final Four run last year, played at Auburn the last 2 years. Might have graduated high school with me. I don't know. He's one of these athletes, 26 years old, still had another year of eligibility this year. After helping lead Auburn to a Final Four appearance, he transfers to USC with Coach Eric Musselman, was their leading scorer this year, and has now been dismissed from the basketball program. He USC, who was really, when I first started doing Back Row Bracketology, they were in my bracket. They've now lost 5 in a row. They've fallen out of it. They were playing number 12 Nebraska at home Saturday in a game they really had to stay alive. He had a bit of a hard fall. Said he really couldn't go back in early in the second half, and then was seen sitting in an area with fans instead of on the bench with the rest of his team. Don't know really anything else. Team spokesperson said we've got nothing additional to add at this time. After the game, Coach Musselman was asked about it. And he said all he said was he couldn't go, and he was asked about him sitting with fans, and Musselman said there was a shortage of chairs on the bench. So, you know, tell me what you think about that. But anyway, Baker-Mazara, 26-year-old grad student. Started at Duquesne, then transferred to San Diego State after his freshman year, then had a year in JUCO with Northwest Florida State, then had 2 really good years with Auburn, helping lead them to the Final Four last year, and then was the leading scorer for USC. And then suddenly, one day he's sitting with the fans instead of on the bench. Now he's off the team. So, oh, how the mighty have fallen. But anyway, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but that was one thing that stood out to me.
It does. Hearing that, it does remind me of a tweet I saw, I believe it was yesterday, that talks about how Greg Sankey now, the commissioner of the SEC, really wants to push for basically we need to get back to roster limits, and we need to get back to some rules that go into this thing and focus on academics. And I just thought that was kind of ironic coming from the SEC commissioner.
Yeah.
Now that, by and large, whatever you believe about the SEC back in the day of the kind of stuff that may or may not have gone on, that he's the one now calling for, hey, we need to get back and let's just play fair, right?
Yeah. Right.
I thought that was kind of funny, but
yeah,
I do agree with him. I do believe we need to kind of try to get the animals back in the barn, so to speak. And but I just think it was kind of ironic that it's coming from him. Anyway,
for sure.
But anyway.
Okay. My second thing, do you ever watch TGL, the simulated golf thing?
I do not.
I tell you, it's fun to watch, and all the, I mean, Tiger Woods is involved with it, but I mean, you're talking about Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry and just some of the biggest names in golf compete in this thing. It's a simulation. You hit the ball into a golf simulator. You compete as teams. You alternate shots. They've got a green in there that is set up, and it puts the ball on the green. So you actually,
I've actually played in simulators.
It's really cool. It's fun to watch. High energy. There's an audience in there. But Rory McIlroy broke the TGL record with a 392-yard drive yesterday. So I thought that was interesting. Of course, I don't know how accurate that is with the simulation. But I just wanted to put a plug in there because I do love golf, but TGL golf is it's still golf, but I think I really am impressed with how golf is doing things to draw in audiences. Because look, I'm sorry, golf, you know it as well as I do. It's always been a rich man's game, and the common folk don't seem to really relate to it all that well. But this is exciting. It's new. It's innovative. So I just thought that was cool. That's just a little plug for TGL. But the main thing I wanted to talk about, you and I have talked about conference tournaments coming up. I don't know if you've seen the Sun Belt Conference bracket on the men's side. Sun Belt Conference has 14 teams in it. And let me just tell you, the Sun Belt the Troy Trojans won the regular season conference tournament, and there was a 6-way tie for second. 1 game behind Troy. So if you're wondering, is there a small conference tournament I ought to watch that anything can happen? Might be the Sun Belt. Really might be the Sun Belt. But their bracket, they start play tomorrow night, and they play every night all the way through next Monday. And the 1 and the 2 get buys all the way to the semis. David, it's crazy. 11 plays 14 tomorrow night, and 12 plays 13. And then the winner, the 2 winners, they add in the 9 and the 10 seed for the next night, and there's 2 more games. And then the 2 winners, they add in the 7 and the 8. And then the next night, they add in the 5 and the 6. And then the next night, they add in the 3 and the 4. So literally, if you are the 11 seed Old Dominion and you want to win this conference tournament, you've got to win 7 games in 7 nights, which sounds crazy, but I'm going to tell you what I love about this conference tournament is these small conferences, they want to see their teams win. They want to see them win in March Madness. Well, you know what? If the 9 seed gets hot and wins the conference tournament, they're not going to win. They're going to be a 16 seed, and they're going to go face a 1. But if your 1 or 2 seed makes it, they might be like a 13 or a 14, and we've seen that happen before. This bracket looks wild. I'm going to send it to you later. I want you to look at it. But it makes it much more likely that the 1 or the 2 seed advances, which means a much more likely scenario that you could pull an upset win and tout the Sun Belt flag and say, look, Sun Belt basketball, we make noise in March Madness. So a lot of conferences are experimenting with different ways because they want to make the regular season mean something. And I think that's good. I look at a team like Miami of Ohio. Man, if they go 18-0 in their conference, let's figure out a way to make it easier for getting them into the big dance. So I just thought that was curious, but the Sun Belt bracket is unlike anything I've ever seen. I'm going to send it to you because I think you'll find it fascinating.
Absolutely. I'd love to see that for sure. And it's interesting too that we are seeing these conferences. I wouldn't say they're gimmicks, but they are, as you say, they're trying to give their teams as much exposure as possible at the best possible time. And when they have the nation's attention, so to speak. And so that's interesting to hear for sure. Okay, let me kind of go into my portion of the back page here as we get ready to close out this episode of the Right Team Podcast. And oh, by the way, you can see behind me, I am in the Moody Center.
That's right.
UT Austin, celebrating the Horns' big win over their in-state rivals, the Texas Aggies. That's all we're going to say about that. But it was a big win for sure. So here's some things that I saw that kind of jumped out to me on the back page. Did you see that the Texas Rangers have reached a pre-agreement? I don't know what that means, a pre-agreement with a Dominican prospect named Andel Perez, who they gave a $4.0 million signing bonus. Now, that in and of itself is not news. The news of this is that Andel Perez is only 12 years old. Now, look, here's the quote, and I'm reading this from a tweet from a Wilbur Sanchez. Okay. This is on X. It says he's capable of punishing 95 to 96 mile per hour fastballs. From the infield, his throws to first base exceed 88 miles per hour. Without a doubt, we're witnessing the birth of a future star who will be playing in MLB by the time he's 20. Look, we've talked about my experience with travel baseball, and my son was fortunate enough to play college ball as a pitcher, and we did the whole travel thing from the time he was 10 until really he went to DBU, and then he went and played in college leagues after that. My part was done, but I've seen a lot of really good 12-year-old play, a lot of them. All right, all over the country and tournaments everywhere. It was a wonderful experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But I don't know that I've ever seen a 12-year-old who's worth a $4.0 million signing bonus. And I still don't know what a pre-agreement means. Does that mean if we agree to sign you at the appropriate time, then we will give you your $4 million? I don't know what that means. I don't know if the kid's walking around the Dominican right now, with $4 million in the bank. I don't know if it's something that, it's like a trust fund where he turns 16 and then he gets his money. I don't know how that works. But I also don't know how a major league team can see a 12-year-old and say he's punishing 95, 96 mile per hour fastballs. I mean, so anyway, it'd be interesting to see when this young circle the name, Andel Perez. They've got a picture of him here, and he looks like a 12-year-old. I mean, he's pretty good size, but he's got the boyish little face. I mean, he's a 12-year-old. So the Rangers now are expanding their scouting in the Dominican Republic to include pre-teenagers. Well, so I guess that's a good thing to, keep your kid in travel ball, man. You never know. They may sign him when he's 12 or 13 before he gets into junior high, really. Another one of local note here that I wanted to talk about. Matt, did you see at the NFL Combine last week the performance of former Longview quarterback and Georgia Tech standout, Haynes King?
I heard about it. I did.
Haynes ran the 6th fastest time in the 40-yard dash for a quarterback in the NFL scouting combine history. Okay, not just in this combine, but it was 6th fastest time in the 40 in the NFL scouting combine history. And I'm watching the video here, and Haynes got a pretty good stride, but he ran a 4.47. About 6'3", 212 pounds. My prediction is that someone is going to take a chance on Haynes King and draft him because he's got the size. He knows how to, he knows how to play quarterback.
Yep.
And he's got the athletic ability when he runs a 4.4. So somebody's going to take a chance on him, and he's going to have an opportunity to play quarterback in the NFL, which I think is really, really cool.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I certainly hope that does end up being the case. Would love to see him get that opportunity. But yeah, that was, so much of his game is that just brutal power running. I don't know that we ever really got to see what he could be in the open field, and that was impressive to me.
He kind of reminds me, and I don't want to take this wrong because I like the guy, but he reminds me kind of like a poor man's Tim Tebow.
Yep.
I say poor man's Tim Tebow. He's Tim Tebow without all the hype. But that's kind of the game that Tebow had. I'll never understood maybe the worst first round draft pick in history that kind of told you maybe what Josh what's his name at New England?
McDaniels.
Josh McDaniels. Yes. He showed you, where his career was headed as a head coach when he drafted Tebow in the first round. Definitely not a first round quarterback, but I don't think Haynes will go in the first round, but I think he probably secured himself a draft spot. That's enough. Somebody's going to get him in there and work with him. And look, we know he can throw it. It's not like he was asked to do at Georgia Tech, but we know he can throw a football. We've seen him do it. So anyway, happy to hear that about Haynes King. Best of luck to him. Again, the former Longview Lobo quarterback is making some waves there, making history at the NFL Combine last week.
Yeah, that was
another thing here. This is on kind of a personal note, but my alma mater, Northwestern State, their softball team defeated Missouri State over the weekend, and they won the game 5-3. But that in and of itself is no big deal. They won a game 5-3, Matt, and had no hits.
Ah,
How does that happen?
some
No, here's
really
how it happened.
interesting defense, huh?
They scored all of their runs, all 5 in the first inning, on a hit batsman. They had 2 walks and then a fielder's choice error. Somehow that added up to 5 runs and no hits. So, congratulations to my Lady Demons there at Northwestern State in Natchitoches. They come away with a big win and man, you talk about literally finding a way to win. That's what you do.
Yeah. I mean,
no hits.
It's tough to say. What do you say as a coach? You can't say good job lineup or way to hit the ball. So I guess you got to find some other things.
Find a way to win.
Yeah.
I've seen some teams get beat 1-0, 2-1, something like that, getting no hit. I've never seen it. I just never thought it was mathematically possible to score 5 runs and get no hit and win the game.
Hey, I'll have to research this, but if I'm right on this, I want some props somewhere. I want to say Andy Hawkins of the New York Yankees, back when I was a kid, lost a game where he threw a no-hitter and it was 4-0. I could be wrong on that, but I don't know if you remember, we had a year back in like the 90s or something where it felt like there was a no-hitter every 2 weeks. It was just one of those weird years where there were multiple no-hitters in a season. So I'm putting it out there. If I'm wrong, oh well, I took a stab in the dark. If I'm right, I want some props. I feel like Andy Hawkins threw a no-hitter one day and lost 4-0, but that's the closest thing I can remember.
Last thing on my back page, before we move into today's sports history, and you can cover your ears on this, Matt. I know you're not a hate watch fan like I am. You don't really wish ill on your rivals. You can't. You're a pastor. But so I'm going to mention this. I don't know if you saw this. This was a tweet from Talking Baseball over the weekend. But the St. Louis Cardinals have introduced a ticket package, which meaning this is all-inclusive package for $29. This includes your seat, but it also includes unlimited concessions with the following items: bottomless soda, so bottomless drinks, hot dogs, chicken tenders, bratwurst, nachos, fries, popcorn, peanuts, chips, and ice cream. All you can eat for $29. I'll take that deal. I'm not a big Cardinals fan anyway. They stole the 2011 World Series from my Rangers, and I've been hating them ever since. And so, but I would go watch a game that's a lot of food you can eat. All you can eat, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a place where, I mean, concessions are usually a lot more than that. So, I mean, if you want to go get a meal at a concession stand with, say, a dessert like ice cream, you're spending at least $20. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, maybe double that. You may spend $40.
Maybe. Yeah, you may. So, I mean, obviously, of course, we noticed what wasn't on there, and that was alcoholic beverages, but we knew that would be the case. But still, yeah, it's a pretty good deal. I think that's a good promotional piece right there.
And I think it kind of shows you maybe, and again, to kind of kick someone when they're down. The Cardinals were struggling a little bit recently.
They are.
They're trying to get people to the ballpark.
They are.
And $29 for all that food and a ball game. Hey, I'll do that.
No doubt about it.
I don't care what the game's like. It's a good night out. That's a date night.
Hey, real quick before we move to your this date in sports history, did you see the breaking news from the NFL that just came out?
I did not.
The Lions just traded David Montgomery. That's a pretty good running back to the Texans.
Oh,
so Houston Texans just got a pretty good running back. I believe it was a 5th-round draft pick. Still kind of reading up some details on that, but I just got the breaking news alert. So, but yeah, how about that? Texas,
since we're on breaking news in the NFL, I saw this earlier, and I'll just mention it. The Raiders are expected to trade Max Crosby, as early as this week. And of course, one of the teams involved, basically the top 3 that they list here on Yahoo Sports, is Cowboys, Eagles, and Patriots. Don't know how I feel about that off the top of my head, but anyway, that's some news out of the NFL as well. And I am going to tell you, just kind of drop this as a future programming note. I do plan to do a mock draft that I will share.
Nice.
maybe toward the end of next week. I kind of want to wait until after all the free agent frenzy, which starts next week.
Yeah.
Because that can change a lot of who I think gets drafted. You might actually see some trades here that do things, but I have thought about that over the weekend, and at some point I will be unveiling my own first round mock draft. So
very cool. Looking forward to
that. Okay, so let's go to this date in sports history as we close out today's episode. Today in sports history, of course, today is March the 2nd. This is a big day if you're in Texas for sure. But in 1874, the National Association of Professional Baseball Players officially adopted what we now know as the batter's box. So today is the birthday of the batter's box in baseball. So bet you didn't know that.
I did not.
Now, I'm wondering if you know this, my basketball savant. On March the 2nd, 1962, Philadelphia center Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points in a 169-147 win over the Knicks. Here was the Stilts numbers that night. He was 36 of 63 from the field and 28 of 32 from the free throw line. If you do the math on that, that adds up to 100 points. This was the date in 1962.
Does it not feel a little odd that he had to take 63 shots? I mean, it seems weird to me. Like, this is a guy, if you look at the NBA back then, I mean, like, look, no one was as athletic as him, as no one was within like 6 or 7 inches of him other than Bill Russell. But I'll never forget, that iconic picture of him holding up the 100 sheet, like, yeah, that's just iconic right there.
Yeah, that's the ultimate volume shooter from a guy who most likely never really took a whole lot of shots outside of 5 feet from the basket.
I mean, seriously.
I wonder how many rebounds he had. I don't have that here in my notes. But also on this date, in 2012, this is the date that the NFL announced they had uncovered the bounty program at the New Orleans Saints.
Oh, yeah.
That players, of course, got paid to deliver hits on the quarterback and other players as well. And this was the date, of course, where they announced the suspension of Coach Sean Payton for the upcoming 2012 season. And to this day, you can tell Sean Payton has never forgotten that.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
He has a grudge against the NFL, but this was the date on which that was announced. So, birthdays today. Celebrating a birthday today is born in 1937 on this date was former Hall of Fame coach at Louisville, the late Denny Crum, who passed away in 2023, but he was born on this date in 1937. Really good college basketball coach.
Yeah,
consistently really great teams at Louisville.
No doubt about it.
Today also is the birthday of one Ben Roethlisberger, who was born on March the 2nd, 1982. Big Ben turned 44 today. And then this is kind of just for me, but this is also turning 33 today is former Rangers outfielder Adolis Garcia, who's now a Philadelphia Philly. Happy birthday, Dolly. He was born on this date in 1993. So, again, he hits the big 3-3 today. And then a notable death on this date. I don't know if you remember this lady, Matt, but dying of pneumonia at the age of 75 on March the 2nd, 2004 was former Cincinnati Reds owner Marge Schott.
Marge Schott, yes.
Remember Marge Schott and her dog Shotty?
Oh, yes.
The original Shotty. And of course, she was quite controversial with a few of her comments regarding, Nazis and Hitler and things like that. Which never, look, if you're ever in just a PR note from put on my right team services hat here. It's never really good in public to mention anything what you really think about Nazis in particular, communists, in there. Just keep that to yourself if you're in the public eye. It never ends well for you. And Marge Schott learned that the hard way.
Yeah, it's just good to steer clear for sure.
Our final word of the day comes from the Gospel of John, chapter 16, verse 33. It says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. You will have suffering in this world, but be courageous. I have overcome the world. And I think that's all that needs to be said for the times we're living in.
Yes, sir.
For my good friend, Matt Paul, and basketball expert, Matt Paul, this is David Weaver, thanking all of you out there once again for listening to our little show here in East Texas. And those of you listening, we'll be back on Tuesday for another edition of From the Press Box here on the Right Team Podcast. Until then, as always, have a great day and keep writing your story.